it's Daz, and this week I want to talk about something unrelated to some of the current events that I discussed on yesterday's live stream, and actually about something a little less critical, and that is pursuing what it is that you're passionate about more than just a dream. And it was inspired by the fact that I mentioned that I'm getting more and more into hiking, and I'm going to use hiking as my example and share how I've deepened that love of hiking to maybe inspire anyone who wants to do anything else. It doesn't have to be hiking. Growing up, I wasn't really raised to be an outdoorsy person. I lived in Omaha, Nebraska. That's a plain state. There's not a lot of mountains, but I remember a lot of my classmates would take vacations to Yellowstone. And it was one of my goals is to go see Yellowstone because I always loved volcanoes. However, when I moved to Kansas City, less people I knew took trips to Yellowstone until they got way older, but I was still around people that loved to camp and fish. And I got an experience fishing once, but I really didn't get a lot of exposure to the outdoors until I got to my college years and I studied biology because I thought I wanted to be a surgeon. Although that was not in the plans for me, because I did do so many biology classes, I would often, for extra credit, go to listen to guest speakers, and a lot of them were conservationists, park rangers. And I thought, what if I don't get into medical school? What if I have to be a conservationist or a park ranger? And that didn't sound too appealing to me. And then I switched to sociology, and I kind of left that realm. Ironically, when I moved to Sacramento, California for my new volunteer job, I was thrust into a world where everyone around me was from all over the country, and a lot of people being from the West Coast and East Coast were more outdoors and into hiking. Lake Tahoe was only like an hour and a half away. San Francisco was like a couple hours away. So there was so much more to do out there. And I visited Lake Tahoe for the first time on my way to Virginia when we drove cross country from California to Virginia. And I'll never forget the feeling I had when I saw such a beautiful Great Lake. I had lakes around me growing up, but because my family was not very outdoorsy and I didn't have a lot of friends, I didn't really enjoy them other than drive past them. And although I had trips to the beach because I was in a landlocked area, I didn't really get to go to the beach often. So it was fun to be at Lake Tahoe. And we also traveled to Arches National Park, which was, I think, technically my first national park I ever visited it. And I really loved it. I thought it was amazing, but I still didn't have like the bug like some of the people I worked with that wanted to go to all the national parks. It wasn't until in 2021 when my family planned a trip to see the upper northwestern states, because by then, because of all the driving we've done, we're like, let's hit all 50. And all we have left really is like that corner in the top, which included Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington. So we took a road trip, landed in Jackson Hole, which is beautiful, and that sits within Teton National Park. Traveled into Yellowstone, went to the St. Anthony, Idaho sand dunes, and then we drove up to Butte, and then was on 90 until we hit Seattle, and then start dropping down on the 5 on our way down to San Diego. It was an epic trip, seeing so much vast alpine and volcanoes and watching the terrain change before our eyes. And I fell in love with the west part of the US even more. Like, I've always loved California and Arizona and the Southwest, but I grew appreciation for the PNW or Pacific Northwest. And then not long after that, I had jobs that traveled that sent me up to Roseburg, Oregon, that sent me up to British Columbia. And so I got to spend more time in the forest, and the more time I spent in it, the more I wanted to visit it. So I started planning trips to national parks and hiking trails. Very basic hikes, nothing too strenuous, but some notable hikes that I took back when I was working my first job, where I stayed in Sacramento on campus, and then we had projects in DC, Beeville, and Saipan. I hiked at Zion National Park, not Angel's Landing. That one's pretty strenuous, but just getting used to being outside and breathing in air. And what was crazy about this was I remember when I was very, very young, I'm talking childhood, like 12 years old, I was built like your typical kid. And I was like, I want to be strong. I want to be able to be really fit. And then when I hit my teen years, I just had no discipline with my diet whatsoever. And so I was like thin, but it was only because I had a high fast metabolism because I was a teen. But once I hit the age of 20, around 20, about 19 actually, my metabolism started to slow down and what I ate mattered more than ever. And I started to gain weight and I started to feel sluggish and lethargic. And it was harder for me to climb steps. Like I remember going from like 127 pounds at my lightest up to like 160 or 170, which is a huge jump in weight. And it showed and I felt it. And I also was going to the gym a lot at the end of high school, but I stopped because my mom and me would work out. And when she got in a car accident, she was injured. So I didn't like going to the gym alone. So I would never have imagined that I would want to walk for recreation in the way I walk now. And it's crazy because, as I've shared on this channel with weight loss, my weight peaked in 2022 in the 230, 220s. And I'm only 5'5", so you can imagine that's pretty heavy. It's definitely considered obese. And I had a sciatic injury, and when I had that injury, it really changed my way of thinking about food and everything else. And since then, I've dropped about 70, 80 pounds. I'm like 150, 160-ish. I look a lot leaner than I am because, like, I don't know, I think I built so much muscle from everything that I do. But anyways, going back to what I'm saying, I went from a place in my life where I felt like it was hard to walk upstairs. It was hard to even like park my car and then walk to different spots on the campus, to now hiking. My last hike I just did was 13 miles long, and my goal is to hit about 20, 25 to 30 miles. And I want to be able to summit one day and climb a 14-9er. Like I have big goals with hiking, and I've really recently started pursuing the harder hikes. And I got there because of just slowly inching myself in, and it's changed my perspective, even the way I work out. Like my husband, he likes working out as well. He's not like a experienced hiker. Like I have a lot more hiking under my belt. Like I've hiked in Alaska, California, Nevada, I don't know, Montana I visited, Wyoming. I've hiked a lot of like trails in the West and even some on the East Coast, but again, they were simple trails. But now I'm to the point where I'm like, I want the Triple Crown. I want to do the Appalachian Trail. I want to do the Pacific Crest Trail. I want to do the Continental Divide. I want to walk to summits. I want to eventually get into mountaineering. And I know those are big goals, but it's crazy because I feel like God used the whole weight gain and weight loss experience to not only humble me, because I understand now what it's like to be someone who carries a heavy weight and be someone that's extremely fit. I understand what it's like to be able to eat whatever you want and then your metabolism to slow you down. And I understand what it's like to get to a point where I binge ate. I used to, when I was a teenager, struggle with body image issues, and I would not eat because I wanted to be so thin. And that did not help me at all. It fatigued me. So I feel like my pursuit of wanting to hike, it's trained me a lot on nutrition, because lately when I've been taking these weekly hikes, I realize I have to have enough hydration. I have to have electrolytes. I have to eat right. And even during the week, I have more accountability to want to make sure that I'm consuming the right things. So when it's time to hike, I'm not malnourished, undernourished, or feeling like crap. The same thing with the gym. Like for the longest time, when I first joined the gym as a teenager, it was all about the way I looked. When I joined the gym again and I had all that weight, it was about weight loss. And then it became, I was scared. I was wanted to maintain, because when you've been a higher weight, sometimes you have a fear of gaining it back. But now, instead of focusing on maintaining, looking a certain way, I'm focused on strength and agility. Everything I do is in preparation for my hike that I plan to go on and document, but I'm training and it's a good feeling. But to get there, like, admittedly, it took baby steps. It took a lot of faith. It took a leap of faith, because I remember being like in my early 20s and my calves would swell from walking and my mom would have to massage them out. And I was like, have I peaked already in my early 20s? Am I going to not ever be healthier again? I've started to feel that way. And I can honestly say in my early 30s, like at age 30 going on 31, I'm a lot healthier than I was at 20 or 21. But a lot of that was making decisions and listening to my body, uh, realizing I can't have dairy the way I used to. I can't have sugar the way I used to. I can't eat seed oils the way I used to. I tried veganism. I tried all kinds of things. Veganism was not for me. It's for some people, but realizing high protein, just educating myself on my own experiences. And the funny thing is, I sought so much advice from external sources. I looked into having a nutritionist. I looked into having therapy for all of that. And in the end of the day, it's just like trial and error as far as learning about that. But even with hiking and getting more into it, what I love about it is you're just out in nature, you're enjoying God's creations, the beauty of the earth, and you're getting to really experience what God created, as well as just, you can take it as slow as you want. It's not a race, it's a marathon. It's about endurance and, setting mini records for yourself. Like for me, starting out, like, I'm just going to try to get 5 miles. Okay, I could do 5 miles. Maybe now I'll aim for 7 miles. Now I'll aim for 10 miles or whatever. You build up your gradual, and some of us are equipped to do more than others right away or right off the bat, depending on our past before. But really just having the faith to get started. And admittedly, it's helpful to me that I did marry someone who shares similar goals to me. But even before I was married, when I was single, I would go on hikes by myself. Like, it's nothing too dangerous, nothing too remote, but like, because I had a job that traveled, I knew we don't have mountains in Missouri like that unless you're in the Ozarks. We don't have mountains like that in Nebraska, where I was born. So when I was places where there were mountains or there was forest, I tried to take advantage of either having coworkers go with me, or sometimes if no one would go, I would just walk alone. And that built my confidence up a lot and helped me to really appreciate hiking to a degree that I never had. And even like my family, when we'd go on trips, we loved nature. So, and this is later in life, of course, 'cause I told you growing up it was different. But once I got my family to start loving parks and everything, they like to go. And admittedly, they were not trying to get into strenuous hikes. Not that they didn't feel like one day they could, but they weren't ready for that. So I had to have enough faith in myself that I could train alone. And so even when I started working out in the gym, I started thinking, okay, I want to be a better hiker. I need to get on the Stairmaster. I need to walk at an incline on the treadmill. I need to bike 30 minutes a day. Like, my cardio has gotten so much better because I spend a lot of time in cardio and understanding strength training's role in everything as well. Now that I want to do like 14ers, which if you don't know what a 14er is, it's a term that comes out of Colorado for mountains that are over 14,000 feet. I realized that I got to have more stability. So like I incorporated swimming. I've incorporated doing more core workouts, and core is something I'm bad at, but I'm learning to plank more often and things like that. But just really pursuing it. And the thing I like about it too is it's a healthy pursuit. It's something that I can spend my time doing that's not going to harm me, that's not going to harm someone else. It doesn't have to be that expensive. I mean, the most expensive part of it is is getting a gym membership. And then the other expensive part is like when it's time to get on the trail, I'm making sure that I have the right backpack, making sure that I have hiking poles. Things like that can get a little pricey, but training for it otherwise, like walking, is free. Parking may not always be free certain places, or you might need a pass, but things like that, like that's my passion now. And even if your passion is something unrelated to hiking or mountaineering, and it's starting a business, you got to start somewhere. And one thing too that inspires me is consuming content of people who are seasoned in it. So watching videos by seasoned hikers, people that tell me what kind of workouts they've done, what kind of ways they prepared, what kind of equipment they've bought. And I know we talked about AI the other day, and I do use AI to my advantage. So like Google, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, asking it like, hey, what are some tips you have on nutrition? What are some tips you have on workouts? Talking to people in the field, if you know anybody that does it. These things will help prepare you. And then, of course, as a believer, as a Christian, I always say pray about it. And that's something I've prayed about. Like, I'm like, God, this is my passion. I want to hike. I want to be a thru hiker one day. I want to be able to climb mountains. You know where I started from physically. Can you bring the right people into my life that share the same interests? Can you help me to make the right decisions? Can you guide me. And it's amazing how God answers our prayers. Like, I never thought that, I don't say I never thought, but it's so important to have those things. And the reason I am stressing even pursuing your passions is not just because I'm excited because I'm training to do some hikes that I've wanted to do, but also because when you really start to pursue your passions and you're living in the truth you want to live in as far as what you love to do, you'll find that it's easier to connect with people and be more authentic. And also, I find that one reason we struggle as a society with artificial connections is because not enough people know about themselves, know what they want, and that sort of thing really can hurt us because sometimes then we pursue connections on a shallow basis, or we think we like people, but maybe like I was telling my mom this, sometimes when I was younger, people would bond over talking bad about the next person, gossip, which is actually pretty toxic. Or they didn't like the class that they were in, or they hated their job. But outside of that dislike or conflict, there was no real connection or interest. So I find as I pursue more things that I'm passionate about, that I like, that are not negative, that aren't based on hating this or hating that, the more genuine connections I'm able to form. So that's another reason I encourage you to really tap into, what do you like to do? What would you want to do? Where do I start? And it's amazing because we're in the information age where we can do research. We don't just have books that you can check out of the library anymore, which you can still do that too. But we have television, we have the internet, we have so many platforms that we can use to better understand what it is we want to go after and pursue. But that's just a little bit in a nutshell how I got into hiking and where I want to go from there. And in the future, depending on how things go on my second channel, I may share some of the hiking experiences I have once I do it, or even how I prepared for it. But let me know in the comments section what types of passions you have that you would like to pursue. Are you into hiking and into mountaineering? Do you have any tips to give? And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend. Take care. God bless. Until next time.